Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our headlines. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is headed to Saudi Arabia as he prepares for talks with Ukraine on the war with Russia. The meeting comes as Trump says Ukraine may not survive the war. South Korean prosecutors have vowed to pursue Yoon Suk Yeol's conviction despite the president's jail release. Police say they are preparing for worst-case scenarios ahead of the impeachment ruling. Syrian leader Ahmed al-Sharaa has vowed to hunt down those responsible for harming civilians after a reported 830 people were killed in massacres targeting Alawites on Friday and Saturday. Israel has ordered all of Gaza's electricity supply to be cut off in an attempt to pressure Hamas into releasing the remaining Israeli hostages held in the territory. Clashes have broken out in Romania as the far-right presidential hopeful Calin Georgescu was barred from May's election following last year's annulment over alleged Russian involvement. President Donald Trump has refused to say whether the US is facing a recession or price rises amid his administration's controversial tariff action. Mark Carney has won the race to succeed Justin Trudeau as Canada's Prime Minister as he attacks Trump in his victory speech, vowing to win the trade war against the US President. India held their nerve to beat New Zealand by 4 wickets to lift the Champions Trophy. Ravindra Jadeja hit the winning runs as his side reached the 252-run target with 6 balls to spare. According to a statement from the US Department of State, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will visit Saudi Arabia from March the 10th to 12th for talks with Ukrainian counterparts. Rubio will also meet the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said. On Friday, Rubio spoke with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha. He stated that President Donald Trump wants to end the Russia-Ukraine war as soon as possible. Trump suspended aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine following a difficult meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on February the 28th. Zelensky has announced plans to visit Saudi Arabia for a meeting with Mohammed bin Salman on Monday. Ukrainian diplomatic and military representatives are also set to meet with the US team on Tuesday. US President Donald Trump has downplayed fears of a US recession. He called the economy's current state a transition, despite growing concerns of a downturn. Speaking to reporters, Trump defended his aggressive tariff strategy amid ongoing trade wars, but acknowledged the potential for short-term instability. When asked about the possibility of a recession this year, Trump avoided giving a direct answer, stating that he hated to make such predictions. His comments follow a warning from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, which projected a possible economic contraction in the first quarter. This heightened fears of a slowdown. Despite these concerns, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick rejected recession warnings. He told reporters that there will be no recession in America. As Trump's shifting trade policies continue to drive market volatility, questions remain over the strength and stability of the US economy heading into this year's first quarter.
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
The Philippines has reaffirmed that its actions in the South China Sea are driven solely by national interest, emphasising its sovereignty and independence from external influences. The Department of Foreign Affairs criticised China's refusal to adhere to international law and condemned its coercive behaviour affecting Filipino communities. This statement responds to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's allegations that the Philippines' policies are influenced by external forces. Here's what he said in his statement.
你提到中国同菲律宾的海上摩擦问题，我想起不久前在一个国际论坛上，有一位地区国家的官员，他这么说： 他说，菲律宾同中方的摩擦就是一出皮影戏。这个比喻很形象，因为菲方每次的海上行动，编写剧本的是域外势力，承包直播的是西方的媒体，而戏码千篇一律，就是处心积虑的抹黑中国。人们已经没有兴趣再看这出不断重复的闹剧了。中方将继续依法维护自身的领土主权和海洋权益，在管控仁爱礁、黄岩岛时，也会根据实际需要体现我们的人道主义精神。但我要在此讲明的是，侵权挑衅必将自食其果，甘当其子。
To promote transparency, the Philippines has involved journalists in maritime patrols and resupply missions, shedding light on China's activities in the disputed waters. This approach has garnered support from allies, including the United States, which upholds the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling invalidating China's extensive claims in the South China Sea, a decision China continues to reject. Argentina will observe 3 days of national mourning after catastrophic flash floods claimed at least 16 lives in Bahia Blanca, officials have announced. The disaster, triggered by a year's worth of rainfall within just a few hours, left entire neighbourhoods submerged. The nation has been particularly shaken by the tragic deaths of 2 young girls, aged 1 and 5, who were swept away by the torrents. Bahia Blanca Mayor Federico Sabieles stated in a press conference that the flooding caused $400 million in infrastructure damage. All areas of the national government will remain dedicated to assisting the victims in this moment of sorrow for all Argentines, the presidency said in a statement. The government has authorised emergency reconstruction aid amounting to 10 billion pesos. Bahia Blanca has faced severe weather-related disasters in the past, including a deadly storm in December 2023 that claimed 13 lives. South Korean prosecutors will continue pursuing President Yoon Suk Yeol's conviction for insurrection, despite a court decision ordering his release from prison. Prosecutor General Shim Woo-jung said on Monday that he respected the court's ruling. However, he disagreed with its assessment that the indictment was filed after the legal expiry period, making Yoon's detention illegal. Yoon has been on trial since the 20th of February for allegedly declaring martial law on December the 3rd and lifting it 6 hours later. Although the Seoul Central District Court cancelled his arrest warrant on Friday, prosecutors decided not to appeal the ruling. Yoon walked out of detention after nearly 2 months behind bars, where he met enthusiastic supporters. Impeached by Parliament and suspended from power, his fate now rests with the Constitutional Court, expected to decide soon whether to reinstate him or remove him permanently. If Yoon is removed, a presidential election must take place within 60 days. US Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have detained Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist and former graduate student at Columbia University. Khalil, a legal permanent resident with a green card, was arrested at his university-owned apartment in Manhattan. The Department of Homeland Security cited his alleged connections to Hamas and involvement in anti-Israel protests as reason for the arrest. Khalil's detention marks the first publicised deportation effort under the Trump administration's crackdown on student activists linked to Hamas. Civil rights groups have condemned the arrest, viewing it as an attack on protected political speech. The New York Civil Liberties Union described Khalil's detention as unlawful and retaliatory. Columbia University has faced scrutiny for its handling of student protests, with the Trump administration threatening to cut $400 million in federal funds, alleging the university failed to curb anti-Semitic harassment. Khalil's arrest has intensified debates over free speech and the extent of federal authority in targeting activists. US President Donald Trump says the United States has just about ended its suspension of intelligence sharing with Ukraine. This comes after the CIA confirmed last week that the pause had been put in place, a move seen as pressure on Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky to engage in talks with Moscow. Meanwhile, Russia has captured territory in Ukraine's Sumy region for the first time since 2022, claiming to have liberated the village of Novenki near the Russian border. Military analysts warn this could threaten a key Ukrainian supply route through Kyiv, though Kyiv has yet to respond to Moscow's claims. Romania's Central Election Authority on Sunday barred far-right pro-Russian candidate Călin Georgescu from running in May's presidential election rerun. According to Reuters, this decision is likely to deepen a constitutional crisis in the European Union and NATO member state. The cancellation of the presidential election on December the 6th, due to allegations of Russian meddling in Georgescu's favour, has placed Romania at the centre of a dispute. Members of Trump's administration called the cancellation an example of European governments suppressing freedom of speech. The election authority, composed of Supreme Court judges and political party representatives, ruled 10-4 against allowing Georgescu to stand. The rejection can be challenged in the Constitutional Court. Hundreds of Georgescu supporters gathered outside the election bureau, shouting "thieves, traitors and freedom." They threw rocks and attempted to breach a security cordon.
Am aflat de la știri că BEC ar fi anulat candidatura domnului Călin Georgescu și deja nu mai este vorba despre cine candidează, ci este vorba despre democrație, care a fost călcată în picioare din toate punctele de vedere și cumva nouă oamenilor ni se arată direct pe față că trăim într-o mare dictatură, adică drepturile omului.
To sport now, and India's 4-wicket victory over New Zealand in the final of the 2025 ICC Champions Trophy sparked an outpouring of celebrations at the sold-out Dubai International Cricket Stadium. The win marked a historic moment for India, ending a long wait for an ICC event triumph. Before this, India's last ICC title came in the 2013 Champions Trophy when they defeated hosts England in the final in Birmingham. The atmosphere at the Dubai International Cricket Stadium was electric, with the sold-out crowd erupting in joy as Ravindra Jadeja hit the winning boundary off Willow Rourke on the penultimate over's final delivery. One of the most memorable moments of the celebration was the camaraderie between Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma. The two stars shared a light-hearted stump dandiya dance, delighting fans with their bromance. With this win, India has become the most successful team in Champions Trophy history. They previously shared the trophy with host Sri Lanka in 2002 under Sourav Ganguly's leadership. 11 years later, they then clinched the title, as mentioned, under Dhoni's captaincy by defeating England. And now, with the latest triumph, India has further cemented its legacy in international cricket. In a recent interview, leaders of Colombia's National Liberation Army issued a serious warning of total war after the government suspended peace talks. This escalation follows intense fighting in the Catatumbo region, where the ELN and dissident factions of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia are battling for control of strategic territories. Here's what the ELN commander officially said.
Que había un compromiso directo de la banda del 33 de FARC con el presidente Petro en todo ese tema de venir mostrando algo de resultados en esa paz total que ha venido hablando Petro, que a la final se está convirtiendo en una guerra total.
In January, President Gustavo Petro declared a state of emergency and interior commotion, deploying additional troops to the area. He also granted the executive branch special powers to restore order. The ELN's recent statements highlight the fragility of Petro's total peace policy, which sought to negotiate with all armed groups at the same time. The ongoing violence has resulted in many casualties and the displacement of thousands, raising concerns about a potential humanitarian crisis and the stability of the region. In a significant development, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced that diplomatic efforts led to the suspension of US tariffs. These tariffs were temporarily lifted on Mexican goods.
Nos reunimos para congratularnos, porque en la relación con los Estados Unidos, con su gobierno, prevaleció el diálogo y el respeto, y fueron levantadas las tarifas o aranceles que se estaban aplicando a productos que exportamos hacia el vecino país.
Speaking at a rally in Mexico City's Zocalo Square, Sheinbaum emphasised the importance of national sovereignty. She also stressed the need for respectful relations with the United States. The rally, initially planned to discuss Mexico's countermeasures, turned into a celebration. This happened after US President Donald Trump decided to delay 25% tariffs for a further month. He cited mutual respect and a positive relationship with Sheinbaum. Torrential rain from the remnants of Cyclone Alfred has caused severe flooding across Australia's east coast, leaving more than 200,000 homes and businesses without power. Authorities have issued flood and severe weather warnings across a 400-kilometre stretch covering parts of Queensland and New South Wales. Brisbane, Queensland's capital, was hit especially hard, with a foot of rain falling in just 24 hours. Streets were submerged and images show cars almost completely underwater in some of the worst affected areas. Emergency crews worked through the night, rescuing 17 people from fast-moving floodwaters. The US Secret Service shot an unidentified man near the White House following an armed confrontation on late Sunday night. Officials say the individual was reported as a suicidal person travelling from Indiana. Secret Service agents located his parked vehicle near 17th Street in Washington and found a man nearby matching the description. As officers approached, the suspect brandished a firearm, prompting agents to open fire. The man was taken to a local hospital and his condition remains unknown. No Secret Service agents were injured in the incident. While President Trump was not at the White House at the time, he's spending the weekend at his Florida residence. The DC Police Department's Internal Affairs Division will lead the investigation, reviewing all officers involved in the shooting in the District of Columbia. As this investigation unfolds, authorities are working to determine the suspect's motives and the events leading up to this confrontation. The US has ended Iraq's waiver to buy electricity from Iran without facing sanctions. This move is part of President Trump's maximum pressure campaign against Iran. The campaign targets Iran's nuclear program, missile development and support for terrorism. Let's take a look at what US State Department spokesperson said in the official statement.
As you might imagine, we have nothing to announce with regards to the current electricity waiver that expires on the 8th. In line with National Security Presidential Memorandum Number 2, we are reviewing all existing sanctions waivers that provide Iran any degree of economic or financial relief. And we are urging the Iraqi government to eliminate its dependence on Iranian sources of energy as soon as possible and welcome the Iraqi Prime Minister's commitment to achieve energy independence. Hopefully, the United States is leading the way when it comes to that kind of an approach.
The waiver's expiration raises fears of power shortages in Iraq. Iraq heavily depends on Iranian electricity due to weak domestic infrastructure. Despite oil and gas reserves, Iraq struggles with consistent power supply. Government spokesperson Bassem al-Awadi said authorities are preparing for any scenario. Iraq is seeking alternative energy sources to reduce disruption. Efforts include boosting domestic production and upgrading the power grid. That's all we have time for, but we'll continue to bring you more of the latest international news developments.